Students, welcome again to our geography didactics, or we can say teaching methodology of geography. Ms. Sankanda again as your geography didactics tutor. Let me take you on to what you needed to prepare for your August examination again. First of all, I would like, or I usually used to tell learners to book or to read, to buy a book or a textbook that is being prescribed by the institution, Geography Teaching in Southern Africa, an introductory guide by Harry. You can use the textbook to study for your examination, as well as for writing your assignment. As I said, please buy the book. It's worth spending. If you cannot find the book, I know that the institution also provide you with a study guide, and most of the topic is being covered on the study guides that you are being presented with by the institution. So when we ask what is didactics of geography, what exactly are we talking about when we talk about the didactics of geography? Actually, this is the instructional manner in which geography should be transmitted to the student. The way that we have to teach and make our learners understanding geography, different types of teaching methodology that we have to use. For example, that is now we term as the didactics for geography. One can say it's a science that describes the teaching and the learning in an educational context. So it teaches how to present the lesson as well as how to learn it. So the teaching of this geography actually is what we do in our secondary school, and again we have to do it by using different approaches, all of which requires the use of the instructional material. So which means that we need material to carry out the teaching methodology or the didactics of geography. So out of it, I have to highlight some of the area that happen to be a bit difficult for learners when you ask in the examination. So most of the time you will find that the student cannot provide you with the answer that you really needed. So for example, let us look at the skills that the pupils will acquire through the field work, as you now have to take your learners to do the field work in a specific topic of geography. What are the skills that they are going to get out of it? Skills that they can acquire, for example, we have the observation skills, the research skills, recording skills, measuring skills, drawing and the sketching skills, the statistical representation, management skills, as well as the problem-solving skills. So once they get those skills, it means that they will be able to do their research with other institutions where they have to do the PhD, for example, or the masters. So observation skills, it teaches the purpose to observe scientifically and as well as critically. For example, you go in the field, you observe different phenomena, you come and you present them, you give them meanings when you present them, or you analyze the information. The research skill, it is relating to the use of a reference text. You can use different textbook, you compare what other authors have to say, about the problem that you went and research for, then you make now a conclusion out of the findings when you have to compare what the other researchers have to say. Recording skills now is when you teach your learners to record information either in note form or in diagrams, maps, sketches, or on the bar graph. Information that is being corrected. Now you came and you gave them meanings when you present them for other people to come and read as secondary sources later. Measuring skills. This one, it can teach the learners to take the accurate measurement of phenomena. For example, the distance, the angles, rates, and the quantities. And most of the time, if the learner miss out on these measuring skills, information that they can present will be biased, and which means that they cannot provide the accurate information. Therefore, you need to train them well. The drawing and the sketching is something needed for the field sketch techniques. For example, you go to a river, you want to do the river profile, you make a simple sketch, you indicate where the land break, you indicate where you have to put your raging poles or your measuring stick, how to use the measuring type, and how to use a chronometer, for example, so that you can able to read the angle of the land. So with that sketch, somebody can able to ask to describe what is going on there, and if the person is having that skill of drawing a sketch, it means that the person will also having the skill of interpreting the sketch. The statistical representation. This skill is now when we have to use the graphs, the bar diagrams, and the charts, which means that again you give meaning to your information that you corrected. So the management skills, it includes the management of time as well as the management of energy. As you go and you observe, now we have to see how we can conserve them. Problem solving skills, whereby you need to train your learners to examine the issue critically or in detail and to work towards solution of the problem. So some of the learners, they do not know how to examine. They do not know how to interpret a photograph in front of them or a sketch in front of them. Therefore, most of the time, they will leave unanswered question lying around the question paper, while information is within the photograph that you presented to them. So now teach the learner how to do this problem solving skills using the picture that are presented to them. Let us now look also at the methods that we can use when we have to do the geography lessons, since we said didactics is the methodology of geography. We use different types of presenting our lessons in geography. We have a traditional method that we call the narrative methods, whereby most of the time, during that time, teachers have to give information where the learner have to listen. In this method, teacher usually used to consider learners to have to be in an empty bucket, like they have no knowledge. And now, mostly we move from this traditional method, whereby you have to accommodate the learner-centered method, whereby you give learners opportunity to participate or to be part and parcel of the lesson. Another method that we can use is a question and answer method. And remember, those methods, you have to use them depending on what topic you are busy with. On the question and answer method, the teacher encourages the class to ask questions while the lesson is underway. They also have to do their contribution, if possible, because it's not only the teacher that have to be the source of information. The learners out there, they are also alive with a lot of information. Therefore, do not underestimate them. Accept whatever that they have to give you. We have a textbook method. Textbook method, you have to encourage your learner to use their textbook whenever possible, more specifically when they have to do assignment. In order for them to complete the assignment for you, they need textbook and the internet to help them, for examples. Or some pictures are also drawn on the textbook. Together with your learner, you can able also to examine and critically analyze the information presented on this textbook. And the method that we are having is a demonstration method. Demonstration methods is where you have to present your lesson as you yourself you become a model. You show them or you illustrate what is being done. You go into the field, for example, you show them how to measure. You go to the weather station, you show them how to take their readings that are being recorded on the instrument there, and so does the fourth. We can also use worksheets, practical work, assignments, and the field work. All those methods can be used to present different types of lessons in geography. As I said, depending on what topic you are busy with. Then you have to choose which method will be best to make the learner understand what you are trying to tell them. Now, apart from having different teaching methods, we also have the educational aims and objectives in each and every subject. So geography is also having the educational aims and objectives. And those educational aims and objectives, they are being categorized into different domains. Through them, they help us to set us questions whereby you have to test all the requirements that needed, that are coming with knowledge and understanding, for example, higher level skills, and evaluation of information. Thus, educational aims and objectives, they are grouped or categorized into the cognitive domain, affective domain, and the psychomotor domain. Under the cognitive domain, here a learner needs to have a knowledge, fact of something, understanding, then they can able to apply that knowledge and interpret it. They need also to put information together and evaluate it. Then at the end, they need to decide on the worthiness of the information. Are the information trustworthy? Are they accurate? That is what they need to do under the first domain. The affective domain, this is where the learners need to receive information. They need to respond to it. Placed vary on the information. They need to develop the universal judgment about the information and developing a philosophy of life which can reflect to this various, which means that through this domain we have to put everything that we have to research into meanings. Then the psychomotor domain, we're developing the senses. the senses of touching, smelling, hearing, as well as our senses of visionary. We needed to develop it through the psychomotor domain. When we develop those senses, we can able to do all the things that are being listed on the other two domains. So most of the time when we ask this question, for learner to describe how educational aims and objectives are categorized and explain them, they cannot provide us with answer. Therefore, I decide to give you those categories and what was expected in each and every category. Now, another skill that we needed to develop on the didactics is map work. Map work proved to be a challenge wherever we have to go, even though we have to consider it to be simple. So, know the meaning of a map. What is a map? When you talk about a map, what exactly are we referring to? And we also needed to know different types or the characteristics of a maps, things that give the map the meaning. For example, a title of the map, a scale, bearings, directions, the latitude and the longitude line, or the grade references. Lines. Title of the map is actually the name, usually on top of the map that you are given. The scale of the map is also given most of the time on top of the map or down of the map, whereby they express it into a linear scale, while the top one is usual on a ratio scale. Ratio scale, you find it as 1 to either 50,000, 100, or to 10,000, or 1 to 10. The bearings is the degrees from the north. Then we have to do the whole circle, moving to the east, to the south, west, back to the north again. And those bearings are 360 degrees. Now, places on the earth, they are falling at different bearings or degrees. And when we have to place it on the map, we count it from the Greenwich meridian, east of the Greenwich or west of the Greenwich meridian. Directions, that we can also have our compass direction helping us. North and south in simple, west and the east. Most of the time we ask you a direction of a specific place from example A to B, or from B to C, or D to C. There is a difference from and there is a difference to. Most of the time to give that direction, if we say from A to B, for example, it means that you needed to put your four main direction in A. For example, if you have point A here, and the point B here, and then we ask you a direction of A from B. Direction of A from B. It means that your four main direction will be here. You work it by connecting the 2 points together in a straight line. Then you draw your foreman direction on B. Your foreman direction on B. You make it straight as well. You have your north, your south, your east, and your west. Now, you look at the angle between your point, for example, and the north, as well your point or your object, and the west. When you see that, you can see that this angle is smaller, and this angle is bigger. And remember that our 4 main direction move to 8 and the 16 main direction, whereby we have a single lady being married, then they have the children, which means that the 4 main direction that you are having there will going to form a direction of your object. Okay? For example, if we now have to locate another direction here, that direction will be a northwest. You see these two couples getting married, then they form northwest. Between them is their child that now is being named by a single lady together with their couple. They form their name of their child, which now become north of northwest, which means that the direction of A from B is north of northwest. A is north of northwest of B. In short, that's how we can work out direction. If we say direction of B now to A, you do the same. If we say the direction of A from B, we do the same. Okay, so the bearings, you can also work it that way. Every direction is standing at a specific degree of latitude or longitude. We talk about the distance in the map, that we can use a scale of the map to calculate the distance, or a linear scale to provide answer if there is no calculation that will be needed. Again, on the map, more specifically, if you have to ask skills for map that are based on grade 8, we ask the map that are having the ISO line, whereby you need to connect lines of the same value with the same line. So if you look at your grade 10 textbook, for example, you will find those type of maps. So what you need to know there is that a line cannot pass between a number that it is not fitting. It's only pass between a number that it is fitting. If the number is smaller, it means that 10 cannot go and pass between 15 and 20 because it's not fitting there. And if the number is larger, 20 cannot pass between 10 and 15. So that is the trick you need to know. From there on, you need to know as well the different natural and the physical landforms that are being created when you look at contour lines. Simple tool that you are having a gentle slope as well as the steeper slope. If we have contours that are far away from each other, like this one for example, it shows us that we are having a gentle slope around that contour. The contour is gentle. Okay. If now we happen to have contour that are close together, we are having their value, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, and their interval is 20. Those contours are not as the other contour that I presented. Those one are far away from each other. Those one are close to each other. And this one are the one now that have to form the steep slope. Those are the things that we need you to see in your map when we ask you to describe the physical feature that are being created by contours when you look at contour lines. And remember that the contour lines, those are the imaginary lines. We cannot see them in reality, but we can able to put them on drawings so that they can give meaning to the landform that are in front of us. With them, we can able to say the land is a mountainous area. That is the reason why a town cannot develop at that side, simple because it's too hilly. The land is gentle, that's why it allows agriculture to happen there, or some plantation to be formed there. So those are the things you need to look at when you have to interpret your maps. And the thing that I have to give you out of it is just the one that I see most of the time. They present you with a problem when I have to give you things out of the map. Now, in geography, we are having the basic principles that we consider to be the good or to provide the good teaching of geography. We like to ask that question, and I like to present it to you as to prepare for your examination, simple because you will find most of the students cannot able to answer it, probably because they do not have a textbook or they did not get access to the study guide that are provided by the institution. That I don't know, but that one I usually like to bring it in on my presentation. So the basic principle of good teaching is a question actually that came with a 20 mark, because we need you to list and explain. And the thing that you need to list for the basic principle of good teaching is terms like totality, individuality, development, motivation, observation, environment, moving from the known to the unknown, from the simple to the complex, and the holistic teaching. Then you need now to explain how they make it possible for the good teaching of geography. When we are teaching the learner, we need to teach that learner as a whole. That's why we call it totality. You cannot teach a learner as a half individual, meaning that you teach that learner with the knowledge, background from home that learner have to bring in. Individuality as well, considering where the learner comes from, so that you can apply the cultural sensitivity and the diversity. By teaching them, we need to develop them. How? By giving them different learning activity, because they need to learn by active involvement. And this activity now, they need to accommodate both the slower and the faster learners. Most of all, we need to motivate our learners so that they can able to learn and do well in their academic achievement. Most of the researchers or the research that I have to read, researchers have to highlight that if you ask specific learner why do they fail, they will tell you that it's lack of motivation. Therefore, motivation is playing a role. How to motivate a learner? It depends on a lot of things. You can reward them, you can praise them, talk to them, make them believe in themselves so that they can able to build their self-confidence and they feel that they are worthy living. Observation and perception. We learn best by direct observation. When we observe something, it's harder for us to forget. When we have to be taught and we just listen, mostly it ends from the right ear, then it passes through the left ear. So when we observe things, we cannot forget them. Even if that question have to come, you have to remember because you observed what happens there. You were involved. So therefore, it's better to take them in that field and they pick up the skills. We need to teach them the environmental teaching, experience in the local environment. Then you compare it with what you are busy giving them. Sometimes we have to teach them, but we are not giving them examples that are touching them in their daily life. So we need to apply it. Therefore, we have to come in and say, move from the noun to the unknown. We learn best when we have to build on our existing knowledge. Provide them with what they know, with what they see. From there, they now have to apply the context of another country to their own context. You start from the simple to the complex. Simple because if you start from the complex, you have now to complicate the whole educational setting. You confuse the learners. So you start with the easiest before you go to the difficult one, so that from that easiest they can able to find meanings and they provide answer to the complex situation. The holistic teaching, learn about the whole while studying its part, meaning that if you have to teach them farming, do not only teach the economic part, also touch the social and how it's going to uplift their living standard. How does this farming have to contribute, for example, to the economic development of the country? That's what we call a holistic teaching. You cannot only touch what you see is needed, but also include what is not being covered there, and they provide it as an example. Then that's what we call the holistic teaching. Now, other topic to consider. For example, if you have to look at the weather and the climate instruments, you need to study their sighting, the use, and how we record the information. Hypothesis, statement needed to be proven to be true, and the false is what you need to watch for. Because we put a part of the research paper on that topic. Now it depends on what topic we are going to put it on. So therefore, you study for weather and the climate instruments, where we place them, how we record, so that we can able to make a choice if hypotheses being presented to you that they are true. And now you also need to use statistics to support them. Then we look at the teaching and the learning aids, definition of teaching and the learning aids, advantage and the disadvantage of using some of these teaching aids. For example, there's a big difference between the teaching and the learning aids and the teaching aids in geography class. The teaching and the learning aids is those things like the visual and the audio. The teaching aids in geography class is those maps, those groups, the charts, whatever that you have to use. Those are the teaching aids. So they are differs from the different teaching and the learning aids. And those maps are the thing that falls under the teaching and the learning aids. Look at workshop and assignment, different types of workshop and worksheets, in the assignment, the advantage and the disadvantage, what we call the pros and the cons, the games that we can use in geography so that we can able to execute our learning, note taking and the keeping, why they are important in geography. Then we look at the practical work, field work that I explained, and the skills that need to be acquired out of it. Then we look at the subject policy that made geography a subject. Look at the record of the meetings. Look at the file that you need to keep, scheme of work, syllabus. Those are the subject policy. Nothing else. Those are the things that you need to answer when we ask you to describe what should be included in your subject policy. So far, I have to say, we are coming to an end of our recording. Again, good luck with the preparation of your examination. You can contact me on my detail that I give, and the most of the time, at least contact me between 18 and 20. All the best.